right? Well, my name is Mrs. Kuentz, and I am a storyteller, but I was a librarian, and I was a 4th and 5th grade teacher, and I was a kindergarten teacher. And one thing that the kids always come back to me over years and years and years of teaching is they remember the stories I've told. Not so much what I taught the kids, but I would tell the stories along with what they learned, and they remember the stories. So stories are powerful, and that's why you're here. We want to share some of our favorite stories with you, and there's 3 of us. So you'll hear me, and then you'll hear Carolina, and you'll hear Mary Grace, because we each have our favorite tales to tell to 4th and 5th graders. And my tale just happens to be an urban legend. And urban legends can be found in your library also. They're a little bit different genre than what you're used to. And I know you know genres, right?
Yeah.
Fiction, nonfiction, biographies, what else? Fantasy, historical fiction. Can you guys name any others? Mysteries, biographies, autobiographies. Those are all genres. Well, urban legends is also a genre that we don't always bring up. It's really cool though. Urban legends are those kinds of stories that probably have a little bit of fact in there, but because they're told from one person, and then that person tells another person, and that person tells another person, that person tells another person on the telephone, that another person texts the story. So by the time it ever got to me, it changed a little bit, right? Yeah. And so we call those urban legends. Most of them are based in fact, but we can't really find a fact anymore. So this is just one, and I love this tale. It's called The Flying Cat. Julie, she was excited. Valentine's Day was coming. And she wanted everything just right because she invited her entire family over for a wonderful Valentine lunch. And they were going to play games and have so much fun. So about 2 weeks before Valentine's Day, she was getting that front yard ready, and every morning when she got out there, she was either raking or just trying to make sure, sweeping off the dust off of her steps on her porch. She saw this scrawny little cat, teeny tiny kitten. And it was outside her fence in the front yard, and it would meow from hunger. It wasn't a sweet meow. It was so skinny. Julie, she did everything. She would bring water out, but that cat wouldn't get too close to her from the beginning. But as she presented the water and then maybe some milk each day, that cat would come and just drink it all up. And eventually, that sweet cat just crept right inside the fence and got to know Julie and purred that beautiful purr. And her fur started looking better. It wasn't so matted. Her tummy started growing a little bit. She was growing a little bit. What a beautiful cat. Oh, its fur was now white, no longer dirty. It was taking care of itself. It wasn't hungry anymore. Julie just loved it. She asked everyone around if this cat belonged to anyone, but no one claimed it. So Julie claimed the sweet cat. She named this cat Fluffy. Oh, her fur would just stick up after she had wiped herself down with her own tongue. That sweet cat was gorgeous. And eventually, Julie had invited Fluffy into her house. And there was a litter box, and there was food now, and milk, and water. And that cat had finally found a home. And Julie loved her so much. Well, her house was pretty much ready, and now it was the day before Valentine's Day. And Julie just wanted to make sure everything was just right, and she opened up her front door. Now her cat was still inside, and she went on out with her rake and her broom, and she was making sure everything was perfect. But she thought, I'm going to leave that door open and let Fluffy know that she can come out in the front, and she can stay inside the house, whatever she wants. So while Julie was raking out in the front yard, picking up all the leaves, out creeps Fluffy. Oh, she was just purring away. And she walked down one step, another step, another step, another step. And she was walking right up to Julie, just like she wanted to just roll right on up to Julie's legs and push that fur right around her. When all of a sudden there was a dog out of nowhere had jumped right over Julie's fence, didn't even think about any gate. And you know that dog was heading right toward Fluffy. Fluffy's eyes got so large, I don't know if she'd ever seen a dog before. And the only thing that she could do, she let that instinct kick in, and she ran around the fence. She couldn't even figure out how to climb that fence, and she just kept running around. That dog was right on her. Oh, its teeth were showing. It was salivating. It only had one thing on its mind, and it is to eat that cat in one gulp. Well, that sweet Fluffy, the only thing she could find, her only survival, was this lone tree in the front yard. And it was tall. And just out of instinct, Fluffy just scampered right on up to the very tip of that tree. And while she was on the top, you could just see her shaking. And you could hear her meow, meow. It wasn't a typical meow at all. She was scared to death. That dog had jumped up on that tree, and it was just growling away. Well, once Julie finally got her head about her, and she was focusing on this dog, she took that rake, and without even thinking, she just shooed it away. She had no fear in her at all. You get out of here! You get out of here! Boy, she pushed that dog down the street until that dog just yelped, yelped, yelped into the backyard with the fence had a hole in it, and of course that dog just scampered right in. Well, Julie ran back. She tried to figure out where Fluffy had gone, and there she was, still up in that tree, just shaking. That whole tree was shaking. And so Julie just tried to coax her down. Come on, sweet Fluffy. Come on, girl. It's okay. That mean dog's gone. Come on, Fluffy. That cat, it was not budging. It just stayed up there. And there was no way Julie could reach her. She was way up there. Well, Julie went ahead and called for her husband to come help her. Now, her husband was sitting inside the living room watching the Spurs game. And at this point, the Spurs were not winning. And so it took a lot to get her husband out. But finally, Julie said, you got to help. Call the police. Call the fire station. Call somebody. We got to get Fluffy out of this tree. And her husband finally made it when there was a commercial break. And he walked out and he goes, now, come on, Julie. We can figure this out. We can't call the fire station. The police officers are way too busy. Come on, let me think. I got it. And he just proceeded and marched right into the garage, and he came on out with a 6-foot ladder. Well, that made sense. And he opened it up. He climbed up to the tallest step that he could, and he looked on up there, and he said, come on, Fluffy, let's go, girl, let's go. Got a game to watch. Come on, girl, let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go. Well, that cat wasn't budging at all. He was just shaking. Meow, meow. Well, that wasn't going to work. Now, Julie was going to, we've got to do something. And she's looking up at her husband. Her husband's looking down. And finally, he said, Julie, remember that lariat, that rope you used when you were teaching in 4th grade, right around the rodeo time? I think it's coiled up in the garage. Go get it. I got a great idea. Well, Julie couldn't figure out what he was going to do with that rope, but she had no idea. So she ran into the garage, and she looked all over for it, and there it was. It was coiled up by the car. She picked up that heavy rope, and she ran on out with it, and she handed it up to her husband. Her husband took one end and dropped the other end. He tied up one end to about the middle part of this tall, tall tree. He tied it into a nice square knot, made sure it would not come undone. And then he said, now, Julie, go ahead and pick up the other end. Well, Julie picked up the other end. And then she said, I can't pull this tree down. It's too strong, it's too tall. That's not going to work. Her husband said, no, listen to this. All I want you to do is tie the other end of this rope to the back end of our car. Well, she started getting an idea now, and she looked up at her husband. She said, no way, I'm not going to do that. I am not going to drive this car and pull this tree. It's going to break the tree and probably kill my cat while I'm doing it. No, sir, I'm not going to do that. No, we're not going to pull the tree down. It is a tall, strong tree. We can't do anything with it with our own hands, but since it's just about a year old, it's flexible. We won't break it. By you driving your car down the road slowly with the rope tied to the back end and the other end tied to this tree, it'll bend that tree just enough. I'll move my ladder and I'll retrieve your Fluffy and I'll go watch the rest of the game. So, she had no other ideas. She got into the car. She backed it down the driveway. She got out of the car. She tied that rope to the bumper to the back end of the car, made sure it was real tight. She made sure that rear view mirror was looking right at her husband on that ladder and started the engine, and off she went slowly. Looking in the rear view mirror, he's got his thumb up like this. He's looking at the tree, and he doesn't see him moving. Keep on going, Julie. You're going too slow. Come on, Julie. So Julie, she went a little bit quicker. Now her husband's looking inside the front door from the ladder, and he can see part of the game. He's going, yes! Go, Spurs, go! Yes! Well, he wasn't paying attention to Julie. Julie was still driving. That tree started bending. And once he looked at the tree, he said, Julie, you're doing great. The tree's bending. And she stopped, she looked, and she knew, she got excited. She knew that this was going to work. Well, her husband jumped right off that ladder, moved that ladder a little bit further, and said, keep on going, Julie, keep on going. And he looked up at that tree, and as she started driving that car a little bit further, that tree was really bending, and he just took one little peek, and he noticed the other team had just scored a three-pointer. No! She jammed her brakes on. She didn't know why he was shouting no. Well, as soon as she jammed her brakes on, that tree was down so low he could have just about reached that sweet cat. But when she jerked like that by throwing those brakes on, it did something to that rope. Snap! That rope just cracked in half. And that tree that was bent down so low, it flung Fluffy up into the air like a what? Slingshot. Oh, Fluffy, she went over one house. She went over another house. By this time, Julie had gotten out of the car. They could see Fluffy's four little legs just flying around like this, and they could hear her. She was like, she was like a helicopter with those propellers. And she kept flying and flying and flying over one house, another house, and then down, 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 down. They were in shock. Julie said, jump in. She got her husband off that ladder. He jumped into the car. They quickly put their seatbelts on. Julie got in the car, and off she went. She went as quickly as she could, but still going the speed limit. And boy, she went around every little block looking for a white fluff, praying that it wasn't flat as a pancake somewhere. She looked between the homes. She couldn't find Fluffy. He couldn't find Fluffy. They even asked some neighbors, have you seen our white cat? Have you seen Fluffy anywhere? And her neighbor said, oh no, where was your cat last? Flying right over you right now, just a few moments ago. Oh, those two folks weren't too sure about what their neighbors were saying, that it's a little craziness going on there. So they quickly walked away. Well, Julie and her husband, they looked forever. Her husband forgot about that Spurs game. They couldn't find Fluffy, not even that night. They did a lot of praying, and then the next day was Valentine's Day, a day of caring and loving, and they had so much sadness. They looked still, hoping maybe, they could take her to the vet immediately if they found her, and no, there was no Fluffy anywhere. Everyone came to enjoy what party she had, but she just could not celebrate. Well, that evening, she looked and looked and looked and could not find Fluffy anywhere. But while she was at the grocery store, she noticed one of her neighbors that lived a little bit down the road, an older neighbor, in the pet aisle. Now, Julie was a little confused because this particular neighbor, her name was Mabel. Mabel, she hated pets. She hated cats, she hated dogs, she hated turtles, she hated people. She was just kind of a Debbie Downer. She just didn't have anything nice to say. She was always grumpy, and if she saw anybody walking their dog or holding a cat, she always had something negative to say. And here she was, Mabel, in the pet aisle with a smile on her face, looking for pet items. Well, that was enough for Julie. She was too curious. She walked right up to Mabel and said, Mabel, happy Valentine's Day. Are you celebrating? And Mabel turned around and gave Julie the biggest hug. Oh, Julie, my life has changed. And of course, it's Valentine's Day. It couldn't have happened at a better time. Julie said, what happened? Well, last night, I was out in my backyard, said Mabel, and I was just talking up to the heavens saying, I know I'm a grump. I know I haven't been nice to anybody, and here's Valentine's Day and no one's going to come. My parents won't visit me. My own kids won't visit me, and my own grandkids won't visit me. If I could just maybe change, if a miracle could happen. If I could just ask for a sign, and I'll change the way I am. And so I looked up into the heavens, and I just asked for any kind of a sign. And you know what, said Mabel? You know the heavens opened, and an angel came flying out of the sky, a white angel, and it was singing just beautiful angelic music like and it just hit me right on the chest, and I opened up my hands, and an angel from heaven, a beautiful white cat, was sent to me from the heavens, and she has already changed my life. Well, Julie knew exactly who that white cat was. But Mabel, she just kept on talking to Julia. I don't know anything about animals, as you know. If there might be some way you could come and visit me once in a while. I see you with sweet animals all the time. I bet you can help me understand how to take care of this cat. And of course, Julie said, of course I will. Julie never said a word that she knew exactly who that cat was. Instead, she became best friends with Mabel. And Mabel, she didn't name this white, beautiful cat Fluffy. No, her name was Angel now. And from that moment on, they were steadfast friends. And it was pretty neat that Julie remembered that for Valentine's Day, true love had struck the heart of at least 2 people that day. And that's the story of the flying cat. How about a hand for the story?